Good evening, everyone, and to those joining us online as well. On behalf of the Aysam Faris Institute for Public Policy and International Affairs at American University in Beirut, and of course our dear partners at AGBU and at Lepsis House Potsdam, I would like to welcome you here today for the 9th year of our annual joint event in commemoration of the International Day of Commemoration and Dignity of the Victims of the Crime of Genocide and its Prevention. Investing in the power of youth for countering and addressing hate speech and preventing genocide is the title of today's conference, which very much encompasses the values and the missions of both IFI and AGBU. It is not by chance that we designed this year's event around the engagement of youth. Youth today constitute a vital population in our community and are at the front line of today's information ecosystem. They shape online narratives and influence public opinion more than any other group in the community, and therefore play a crucial role in shaping narratives that promote tolerance and counter hate speech, and lead efforts to prevent mass atrocities. Youth are powerful agents of prevention, capable of countering hate speech through creativity, critical thinking, and active civic engagement. The approach taken in our conference design today very much aligns with global efforts, including UN initiatives focusing on youth leadership in challenging hateful ideologies and fostering peace. As we know very well, our region is facing atrocious wars and continuous political instability, coupled with digital misinformation, and so youth resilience and leadership today are essential for resisting polarization and promoting inclusive dialogue. Our panels will underscore the importance of equipping young people with media literacy, ethical digital citizenship, and historical awareness to recognize and challenge harmful content. And nowadays, we cannot ignore the important role of artificial intelligence. And this is why we have dedicated a segment in our agenda on AI to be covered by colleagues from AUB and our Institute Associate Fellow. Institutions, including universities, civil society organizations, international organizations, and tech platforms, must create environments that support youth-led initiatives and amplify their voices. Investing in the youth is really not symbolic, but very much a strategic option. They are the key to building societies that resist hate, uphold human rights, and prevent future violence. So thank you for joining us today. We have two very rich panels, and we're very much looking forward to the discussions that will arise. Before we begin, I will hand it now to my colleague, Arine Ghazarian, who is the Executive Director of AGBU.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, on behalf of the Armenian General Benevolent Union, AGBU, I welcome you and thank you for joining us for this important discussion. For nearly 9 years, AGBU Lebanon has had the privilege of organizing this conference in partnership with the American University of Beirut and the Aysam Faris Institute for Public Policy and International Affairs. Our shared commitment to dialogue, research, and awareness continues to shape this collaboration. AGBU's mission is built on 4 pillars: education, humanitarian assistance, socioeconomic development, and cultural preservation. Education in particular remains our most powerful tool for prevention and resilience. It equips young people to question harmful narratives, resist manipulation, and speak out against injustice. In the context of today's conference, focused on addressing hate speech and preventing genocide, this pillar becomes even more vital. Empowering youth is a strategic necessity for protecting our communities from discrimination, incitement, and dehumanization. Since the United Nations established the World Genocide Commemoration Day on December 9, 2015, AGBU, an organization shaped by the legacy of surviving genocide, has embraced its responsibility to confront the conditions that lead to mass atrocities. Central among these is hate speech. It is never harmless. It amplifies prejudice, polarizes societies, and creates the environment in which violence becomes possible. History constantly shows that dehumanization and incitement precede every genocide. Young people play a crucial role in breaking this cycle. They are active in the very spaces where harmful narratives spread, and where counter-speech can have immediate impact. Their leadership is indispensable. The United Nations Strategy and Plan of Action on Hate Speech reminds us that prevention begins with awareness, education, and collaboration. By strengthening digital literacy, critical thinking, and ethical behavior, we empower youth to challenge misinformation and uphold human dignity. But responsibility is shared. Governments, civil society, educational institutions, media and technology platforms must work together to recognize the warning signs early and act before words escalate to harm. Today's panel will examine the mechanisms of hate speech, the role of youth, the importance of education, and the need for coordinated action. Preventing hate speech is not only a moral duty, it is essential for peace, justice, and human rights. Thank you.
Hello. So I'll be introducing panel one moderator, Dr. Roy Nock. So Dr. Roy Nock is the director of the Lepsius House Potsdam. He obtained his doctorate with a work on moral and socio-philosophical aspects of genocide and published books on Franz Werfel and the Armenian genocide and on the origins, manifestations, and aftermath of political violence in the 20th century as editor and contributor. Currently, he is working on a 4-volume annotated history-critical edition of Johannes Lepsius's works on the Armenian question, a key figure in the European humanitarian pro-Armenian movement. So please help me welcome Dr. Roy Nock, Ms. Jessie Shaheen, and Mr. Mazen Shakura for our first panel discussion. Thank you.
Okay, now it works. Welcome all, and thank you for the welcome remarks and the introduction. So our first panel is about confronting hate speech. And we have 2 panelists here, which I would like to introduce. So we have Mr. Mazen Shakura. He is currently the regional representative for the Middle East and North Africa of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. He holds a Master of Arts in Diplomacy and has over 25 years of experience with the United Nations in human rights, rule of law, democratic development, good governance, and program management. In his previous incarnations, Mr. Shakura was deployed in Tunis, Bahrain, the occupied Palestinian territories, Lebanon, and Sudan. Welcome to the panel. And our second speaker will be Jessie Shaheen. Ms. Jessie Shaheen is a public information officer at the regional office for the MENA region of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. She holds a master's degrees in communication studies from the University of California, Santa Barbara, and a bachelor's degree in political sciences from the AUB. Prior to joining the United Nations, she worked with International Committee of the Red Cross as the Arabic language spokesperson and served also as a journalist at the Lebanese newspaper, The Daily Star. So that's how it goes today is we have 2 presentations, 12 minutes. Then we have discussions, and then after that, I think the first coffee break and last one, we'll see. So Mr. Mazen Shakura, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. In fact, I was telling our friend that I wrote an article about genocide from a different perspective and different lenses. Always we focus on the legal aspect of the crime of genocide and a lot of citation for the convention and the Rome Statute Article 6, I remember, and the 5 actions, less or more, in both documents related, and then the literature of Nuremberg Tribunal, Rwanda, ex-Yugoslavia. But there is a neglected or forgotten aspect, which I call it the sociological aspect of the genocide. And this is what I'm going to focus on. Because the genocide, and you are better than me, that before Professor Raphael Lemkin, the term do not exist. So he developed the entire, you can't hear me. Less or more, he developed a lot of literature, and unfortunately, whatever he wrote was not reflected even in the convention itself, because he expressed a lot of concerns about the Armenian genocide and also the Syrian, the Ashuriyin, and which were not captured. Now, I'm going to focus on the remaining 10 minutes to me, on the social aspect, which I call it the social capital, and also the relation between the individual and the land. Why I'm saying this? Rwanda passed through the genocide and the tribunal, but look at Rwanda where now, following the recovery era plus the transitional justice, but there is no diaspora, less or more, resulted from this. Look at the Palestinian and also the Armenian. After the Nakba, 48, they never recovered. Trying to say that some nations passed through the crime itself. If they remain on their land territories, they might recover if all the positive, conducive reasons to recover is there or available. But if they lose the relation with the land, because agriculture is the contradiction for any forcibly displaced efforts. So the relation with the land. The Palestinians lost their land, so you are a refugee. You don't possess a land, any land. So how come you will prosper again? This is a big question. Can be a nation subjected to genocide faced for a few decades and could be forever. So this is the aspect where even on the Gaza issue, and I'm a Gazan, I'm from Gaza, and I'm looking to Sarah, whom I met yesterday. I worked also with the Commission of Inquiry in the genocide in Darfur in 2004, 2005. And later I've been kicked out of the country by al-Bashir because of this, because he was, by Okombo, the previous prosecutor of the ICC, he was indicted for genocide along with other 5. One of them already in The Hague, Ali Koucheib, and I hope the others would follow. Yeah. So again, back to the track, going to court or tribunal for the genocide or the crime, you have to prove 2 things, the act itself and the intent. But I think both document, ICC nor the convention, they do not differentiate between the intention and the purpose. So if there is an intention or a purpose, yes, there is. But both, maybe in the case of Gaza, because they were pushed outrage, and some officials, Israeli officials, they announced it and made it clearly since day one. The former Minister of Defense, he said in Hebrew, I remember, Hayot Adam, yani, اللي هو human animals. There is no food, no. So he constituted in his statement, less or more the 4 or 5 actions stipulated in the convention or in Article 6 in Rome Status. Now, the social capital is the horizontal relation between individual and any ethnic national religious community that ties them together in order to prosper and to produce culture, identity, whatever. Now, what had been targeted in Gaza is the social capital. And I think so far, for long, it will take long until the Gaza community, the Gazans themselves will recover. Why? I lived in my entire life in conflict zones. I remember in 87 up to 92, there was the first intifada. In 1 year, we were subjected to total curfew 273 days in 1 year. Almost more than 2/3 of the year were under total curfew. If I need a piece of bread, this would jump too many roofs, house roofs, until it reached me. This we lost this time. Meaning, if my brother is injured, so I just walk out. I can look at him, but I would flee. So I tend to be a monk in myself, thinking I'm a hero, whatever, all these slogans. This is something never happened to a community except this time. This part of the destruction for the social capital, this type of the horizontal relation among the community was totally abolished. The social cohesion among the community totally abolished again. When I get any food rations from any NGO or a humanitarian agency distributing food rations, while I'm walking to my tent, I might be faced with a gang, another victim. I'm a victim, but another victim might pull out a knife or a pistol and kill me for the food that I got from this organization. So a victim is killing a victim for seeking survival. This is what's happening. Again, something else. There is something, we call it المكملات الغذائية, food supplements. UNRWA and other NGOs, WHO and other international like Médecins Sans Frontières and others, they were distributing food supplements for pregnant women. My nephew is still in Gaza, by the way. He was telling me over the phone a story, and I said, no, you are kidding me. The story is the following, that pregnant women selling their البول, urine. البول, urine. I said, what? No, you must kidding me. He said, no. And he said about 2 to 3 centimeters only in a small bottle and it cost $35. I said, what? He said, yeah. I said, but why? He said, because unpregnant women would buy it and go to the laboratory, and then accordingly she got food supplement. So I said, this is not our nation. This is not our people. I never, you're talking about something else. I never lived in, I was not born there. I know my people, I know my neighbors, I know how we behave, how we support each other. We never suppressed each other. We never exploited to that extent each other. No, he said, no, even if there is something worse. But I'm not going to tell you, otherwise you won't come back. So this is the social capital that we lost. And this is something that should be captured in all the literature related to the issue of genocide. It's not only the action stipulated or embedded in the Genocide Convention. Now, if we move somewhere else, I don't want to talk about the issue of accountability and impunity. This is something we can talk about for the next, I think, 10 years. But what I'm saying, as I will describe it again, once again, and once again, this is what called international justice system is a nice vehicle with a squared wheel. So, because there is, again, if there is a will intention or a purpose to commit the crime, there is no will to accomplish any accountability. So it happens before, once in Nuremberg, it happened in Rwanda, but lead me to talk about one thing, just pave the way for Jessie to start her discourse or her speech. I'm paving the floor on the hate speech issue. And because I was also part of a Rabat plan of action against hate speech. And it took us to discuss the entire content of the plan and 4 contents. Meaning, we have to differentiate between 2 things. Hate speech doesn't mean at all emotion things. So when I say I hate Jesse, it means nothing. It does not fall under the definition of hate speech or the 6th threshold or criteria to establish hate speech. But what does definitely fall under is dehumanizing the other. And this is a simple and key for genocide. What it takes to commit genocide or to prepare the soil and the infrastructure and the atmosphere for genocide is denying the other and dehumanizing the others. And this is what, and unfortunately that I can read and listen Hebrew and speak Hebrew and write Hebrew, where I was driving, where I can see in Hebrew, everywhere, in every bridge I crossed, Mavid l'Arabim, death to Arab, death to Arab, death to Arab. So this is, and when you go to some close to settlements, you can listen to the rhetoric, how full with real hate speech that can fall under the United Nations Plan of Action and the Rabat Plan of Action. And I'll be happy to elaborate more during the discussion, and I'm sorry for this.
Okay, we go right into the next talk, and then we have time for discussion.
Thank you. Thank you.
presentation.
I have a short presentation. I would love to be able to show you a short video, if possible. And by the way, I'm wearing my public information hat here on behalf of OHCHR Romania. I can say that our office has been a pioneer in the region working on hate speech, especially with the youth, and also working with religious groups, religious leaders, civil society on the issue of hate speech and incitement to hatred. We've done a lot of work with the youth of the region, bringing them all together to discuss ways to curb incitement to hatred in the region through various means, on a personal but also on an academic and professional level. And it's been very insightful to see how all of them agree, that, words kill like bullets, right? And that we need to be, even in our small actions, daily actions. I teach my 8-year-old at school, when she's bullied, not to bully back. When she hears something bad, not to share or repeat. And it's the same thing for us. If I go on Facebook or whatever, Instagram, and I read something that is not conducive to human dignity, my responsibility as a citizen who is aware of the consequences of hate speech is simply, not to promote this kind of speech, or even this kind of, it could be misinformation and disinformation, which also sometimes yields to hate speech and incitement to hatred. So there are small actions that each and every one of us, we don't have to be human rights activists, we don't need to be lawyers, we don't need to have a legal background. I don't have a legal background. I'm a media expert. I'm not a legal person. But I know for a fact, my human dignity tells me that it is wrong to shame and blame other people in ways that dehumanizes them, as Mazen said. I was once walking in a country and I saw written on a wall, I'm not going to say which country, that this confession or this group of people and dogs are equal. And it was written on a wall and people were passing by and looking at it and it was okay. And to me, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't okay, but again, what can we do? Is there anything we can do, us as citizens, responsible citizens, towards this kind of speech? Let me ask you this. So let's reflect a little bit with a short video. How do I do that? Is there a YouTube thing?
I'm not sure.
Can I copy and paste the link? Yeah.
But has this an internet connection? But I think it doesn't have internet.
It doesn't have
connection.
internet.
No, you see there on the right.
No, it's not connected.
It's not connected.
AUB guest.
You can use this microphone.
Yeah. Pasted the link. Okay. في sound على هذا اللابتوب؟ ما فيهم يسمعوا.
Yes.
Oh no, didn't want to show this one. لا stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
sorry.
مسؤول أممية. Yeah. بس ليش عم بيطلع هيك؟ تعمل كوبي بيست وفوت على يوتيوب.
That a crime is preceded by its speech. We all have to remember that the genocide in Rwanda started with hate speech. The Holocaust did not start with gas chambers. It started long before with hate speech. What we have been seeing in Myanmar against the Rohingya population started also with hate speech. And today, what we are witnessing around this world, with the rise of extremists, be it in Europe, be it in Asia, everywhere, when we see the growing number of neo-Nazi groups, neo-fascist groups, when we see the growing violence and refugees are being terrified, we need therefore to make every effort to address this hate speech. We have to bear in mind that words kill. Words kill are blessed. And that is why we need to make every effort to invest on education, to invest on the youth, so that the next generation will understand the importance of living peacefully together. We need to make every effort so that the attack, like the one we have witnessed in Sri Lanka, when churches were attacked, the one we witnessed in New Zealand, what we saw in Pittsburgh, all this has to stop. And to stop it, we need to focus more on mobilizing the youth. We need to use the verb to become a tool from peace, a tool from love, a tool from increasing social cohesion, harmony, our world be to for committing genocide, crimes against humanity.
So I don't know if you agree, but at least it sums up a little bit also.
AI will create more billionaires in 5
Yeah, sure. It also sums up what Mazen was saying about, incitement to genocide through hate speech. I'm not going to go through the legal instruments because I think we're going out of time. I'm going to jump to the Rabat Plan of Action that Mazen addressed, and then the United Nations Plan of Action Against Hate Speech. We're going to see how both complement each other and where they diverge, actually. The Rabat Plan of Action, I'm starting with it because it's the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights who, in the UN system, took the initiative to act on hate speech and to put together a plan. Why is it called the Rabat Plan? Because simply it was developed in Rabat. The meeting took place in Rabat. And it precedes the UN Plan of Action. The UN Plan of Action was only put together in 2019. This goes back to 2012. And it was developed to address the challenges of hate speech and kind of establish clear criteria of when is this, hate speech and when it is unprotected incitement versus protected incitement, which means freedom of expression. I mean, you can be harsh in the way you express your opinions, but if you don't meet the 6th threshold, then it's not like, the example Mazen gave, I hate Jesse. This is protected incitement. He has the right to say it. It doesn't threaten my life. It doesn't threaten your life. He's not a political leader, so he doesn't have the influence to have, so we're going to see all the 6th threshold that actually could criminalize a speech and describe it or frame it as hate speech. It has 6 thresholds or 6 really definite conditions, let's say. So first of all, the context. We have to take into account when a certain rhetoric is pronounced, the historical or political social conditions. Yani, for instance, if it's a country that, is currently going through, there's parliamentary elections, for instance, in a certain country, and the political opponents are using speech that is full with hatred and dehumanization for the other party. The context is fertile for incitement to hatred. So the context, we can tick the context that this is an inflammatory context, is conducive to hate. Whereas if it's normal circumstances, there's no political turmoil or political, high-level engagement or activity in the country, it could still be hate speech, but the risk is less. So if there's, let's say, elections or any other kind of, political or military action taking place in the country, it certainly fuels incitement to hatred. For instance, if a country like Lebanon, I'm sorry to say, who is already experiences sectarian violence and sectarian, rhetoric, if we hear a statement calling a certain minority a threat or a certain group a threat, then yes, this carries a much higher risk than having the same statement in a calm, stable context where sectarian violence is not there. The speaker, who is the speaker? It's not only what is being said, it's who says it. If I go post something on social media, who cares? No one. I mean, I'm no one, basically. But if a religious leader or a political leader, or unfortunately in modern time genocides, we see, as we were talking prior to this discussion, that we see hate speech language being used by heads of states publicly, on record. So, and these people have prerogatives, they have liabilities, they have the leverage to say whatever they want, and the possibility to influence people and to have followers, and their speeches be shared on social media and other platforms. So the speakers matter. The intent, is the speaker intended to incite discrimination, hostility, or violence, or was it simply a coincidence, just, once in a lifetime, or once in a lifetime mistake, or whatever? The content or the form, the nature of the message. Is it a video? Is it simple text? Is it pictures, dehumanizing, showing that certain people are demonic, whatever, using illustrations? This also weighs in when we would like to identify if a speech is a hate speech or not. The form, what do I mean by, content or form, and also repetition. If the form or the content is repeated constantly on channels, it also weighs in. It becomes kind of a second nature for you to hear this kind of talk. It also influences you indirectly. The extent of dissemination, again, how widely the message is spread, the audience, the size, the platform, the repetition, the likelihood of harm. For instance, if, let's say, if a speech is directed towards, let's say, a historically persecuted group, for instance, displaced people, migrants, religious minorities, so already these groups are under a lot of, pressure and persecution. So if a speech is directed to them, the likelihood of harm is higher than if a speech is directed to kind of a group of people who doesn't really suffer from this kind of history. So these are the Rabat, the 6 thresholds of the Rabat Plan of Action. Now, the UN strategy and plan of action on hate speech came years later in 2019, basically it was launched by the Secretary General to provide a clear guidance on and strengthen early warning and ensure that the UN system acts coherently, responsibly, and preventively vis-à-vis hate speech. It has 2 pillars. The first pillar addresses the root causes and drivers of hate speech. The second pillar responds to the impact of hate speech. And there are 13 commitments in this UN strategy. I'm happy to share them with you by email. I'm happy to share the entire strategy and the Rabat Plan of Action by email for those who are interested, or maybe I can share it with Arine and you could circulate. So first commitment is to strengthen the UN efforts to monitor hate speech, then address the root causes through inclusion and equality, engage and support member states, work with digital platforms and tech companies, and this is something we do a lot. We have an office in New York who deals on everyday basis with Meta and other technology companies to try to find common grounds between, our human rights obligations and ethics and algorithmic, needs and challenges. Yeah. Okay. So I'm being. Is this hate speech? No. So. I only this slide, please, because this is very important. The commitments, I can share them with you later on. How the UN strategy complements the Rabat Plan of Action. The Rabat Plan of Action defines the legal threshold for criminal incitement, whereas the UN strategy provides a policy roadmap for prevention and response. So the UN action plan actually works more on prevention. We work on identifying whether this is hate speech or not. I mean, the Rabat Plan of Action works on identifying whether this narrative is hate speech or not based on the 6 threshold. It doesn't work on prevention. And the Rabat Plan of Action helps decide when the state may restrict the speech and if it has the legal ground, enough legal ground to restrict the hate speech. While the UN strategy helps institutions address why hate spreads and how to stop it. The plan of action focuses on Articles 19 and 20 of the ICCPR, while the UN strategy focuses on the whole of society interventions. And the Rabat plan of action ensures restrictions are necessary and proportionate. Yani, if one journalist in a newspaper posts something that is considered to be inappropriate, inflammatory, whatever, you don't just go shut down the entire newspaper. Is this proportionate? I mean, we've heard of instances where entire media organizations have been shut down because of one person. So this is where proportionality comes into play. Whereas the UN strategy on hate speech ensures actions are educational, exclusive, and preventive. I will stop here, otherwise I will be the victim of hate speech myself. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Jesse, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, time is flying. So I have a lot of questions, but as I said, time is flying, so yes? No? Okay. So again, time is flying. Jesse, please.
Thank you.
Take a seat. So I have a lot of questions, but I would say we use the rest of our time because you are here, you came all the way. So we just open it for the audience. And if you don't have any questions, I will ask. So we turn it a little bit around. So I think we have a microphone somewhere here in the room, maybe. So anyone? Guys, I gave you the opportunity first. No? Okay, then I start. So what I found very interesting is, Mazen, you talked about the social aspects of genocide. And we know Lemkin had this in his works, Access Rule in Occupied Europe, but it never made the UN Convention. So what does it mean, combined with Jesse's aspects on the UN plan? Should we at some point change the UN Genocide Convention to add these kind of new aspects, or what you know, it's, yeah. What do you think about that?
I think yes. My answer, yes. It needs to be updated. A lot of literature, and you are better than me on this, you've seen the article published and the position paper published by the scholar of the Holocaust.
Yeah.
There is something beyond and developed beyond what is embedded in the convention itself. So I think, sorry.
I think someone has to switch on the microphone because I think it's, yeah, but it's on, yeah. So, okay, keep it closer. Okay.
بعد أكتر?
Yeah, no,
okay.
Now it works.
Now, you know, amending a convention at the international level, this is something, I would say, mission impossible.
Yeah.
And you need the consensus around the amendment or codification of one article. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe we need to think of having like an addendum or a new guidelines or before adopting it as a convention, because as I said, it's a mission impossible. Precisely nowadays, that entire UN passing entire in a very deep liquidity crisis, and international multilateral diplomacy under real threat. And the multilateral diplomacy worldwide, it has its own tools, and the UN, one of its major tools for the multilateral diplomacy, when it was created in 1945, it's a recipe of those who gained the war, the Second World War. So it goes back, and they have controlled the 5 veto. Now, it needs a reform? Yes, it needs a reform. To modify or to adopt a new guidelines and document to capture certain aspects related to the genocide crime, yes, I do, because the gravity of the crime itself were not captured in the 5 the 5 actions embedded in Article 2 in the convention. Also, the debate took place with Sharif Bassiouni, late Sharif Bassiouni, when they were developing the Rome Statute. Again, it took long, and he was the first expert into the ex-Yugoslavia, what had happened in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and he was heading the Commission of Inquiry, and he did a lot of work and a lot of literature, and he developed, and also we've seen Adam Adyang. He's my favorite, by the way. We worked together so long. Yeah, I like him very much. He was a judge at Rwanda Tribunal, by the way, Adam Adyang. Also, he was the designated expert for Sudan. Head of ICJ, the International Commission of Jurists. He believed genuinely, and he was the Secretary General advisor in genocide for long. So, and he resigned because there is no ears for him. He left his position. He insisted that this document is old, caduc, and it needs to be updated. The entire action and means and tools that the UN do have to prevent genocide do not exist.
So take us behind the scenes. This is, for me, that's also very interesting. This UN strategy on hate speech. Did the discussion somehow was around genocide as well? Or so can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, in both document, the Under-Secretary General in the issue or the question of genocide, they participated, he and his team in both documents. They were with us in the entire discussion in Rabat, and the issue of dehumanizing the others, accepting the others. The issue of genocide aspect was reflected there in the discussion. And the Ban Ki-moon Action Plan, Secretary General, also again they participated, and they participated into the draft. Why? Because as Jesse just said, it's for prevention, but it do the document itself, if we read it and go through it carefully and thoroughly, you would notice that it focuses on 3 aspects of or 3 layers of extremism. Now everybody is extreme. I'm extremist, but do my extremism lead to violence? This is the question. Now, there is a conducive reason for extremism, and it's listed in the document. And there is also another layer, which is the operative aspect of the extremism. And it focuses on youth, this aspect.
Okay, we have one question in the audience. Andranik Takessian, please. Do we have a microphone for the audience? Yes, we have.
Thank you, Roy. I have 2 issues. One is related to what Mr. Mazen said. It's about the UN Charter and the 5 veto members. Don't you think that the UN Charter was more intended to support the states rather than the minorities and non-state groupings? This is a question quite,
I'm still UN staff. I cannot answer this question. I'm still UN staff.
All right. Okay. All right. The second one is a question regarding Ms. Jessie about extent of dissemination. I think there's something missing there, in the sense that it's not only extent of dissemination, but extent of how many people do use it, extent of adoption of the hate speech. Can you develop it further a bit, please?
Yes, it's a very good point, because sometimes actually you don't discern. You just share the information and you don't fact check. Is this something that is true? Is this fake information? Is this misinformation? So yes, I agree, dissemination, but also if you are not, you need to have a sense of, like an auto censorship. You need to know, before sharing any information, be it hate speech or anything else, you need to make sure that what you are sharing is actually factual and accurate information. Otherwise, you would be contributing. So I agree. It's not only dissemination, it's really discerning whether you're adopting this idea, quote unquote, whether you agree with it or you don't. Now, if you agree with it and it is really very hateful and insightful, then this is a personal conviction that I am unable to advise you on, but I can advise you on reflecting before sharing something. If it's going to cause harm to other communities, to other people, then simply don't do it. Thank you.
There's another question. Yeah, the microphone is traveling.
Could you give us concrete examples where the UN has been able to stop certain hate speech situations? Concrete examples.
Rwanda. In the first time that journalists and some radio stations, directors and chroniclers appears before the court, a tribunal for hate speech and incitement on killing and mass killing and forcibly displacing other tribes and others, was in Rwanda tribunal. And by the way, not only Adama and our former High Commissioner Navi Pillai, she was also a judge in that tribunal. So I think, yes, in Rwanda, there were a successful example.
One more thing. What about the genesis of the word hate speech? Did it start with Rwanda? Or if we go back to the Armenian genocide? Because I went through a number of articles, and hate speech is Rwanda. They had forgotten the Armenian genocide.
No. When I said Rwanda, why I'm saying and referring to this experience, you asked me a specific direct question. Now, the entire whatever document produced by the UN, the ownership should be national one. Don't expect that the Secretary General will come and be a boot on the ground to implement it. But when I say Rwanda, I refer to an example, empirical example that I know. Now, it's not the first time that there is a hate speech in Rwanda. No, definitely even before, and before the Armenian massacre itself and genocide. No, all the way long do exist. The first thing we examined in Rabat Plan of Action is the relation between Article 19 in the Universal Declaration for Human Rights and Article 20. This is a very tense relation between the two articles. One, curb and prevent some speech, part of the speech, which incitement to war, and the other is open the venue and the gate for free speech. So how come? There is a paradox here, a contradiction. So it do exist before, long time ago. No. So, the example I gave, because this is a court were created by the international justice system, where some journalists and media outlets were brought before justice for hate speech. But before, I don't recall. Maybe in Timor-Leste also there is another example, but through transitional justice process. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I'm getting the signal. We know we have to make a break. Sorry, Andranik, but we can.
Well, I will
put it into to the coffee break. So a coffee break now, I guess. So no, 10 minutes. Andranik, sorry, Okay, guys, thank you very much, and see you in 10 minutes back in the room.
We will be starting with our second panel. So I'll be introducing our moderator, Dr. Talar Atesyan. Dr. Talar Atesyan is the Vice Rector for Academic Affairs at Antonine University, Lebanon, and an Associate Professor at the Faculty of Engineering and Technology. She holds a PhD in Engineering Sciences from INSA of Lyon, France. Throughout her career, she has led major initiatives aimed at enhancing teaching effectiveness, strengthening learning quality, and advancing innovative pedagogical practices in higher education. She also brings significant experience in school management, having overseen academic programs and guided faculty development. Her recent research focuses on AI-driven approaches and emerging technologies in education. So please help me welcome Dr. Talar Atesyan, Ms. Hana Addam, Dr. Fatima Abu Salem, Mr. Wissam Saadeh, and Mr. Muhammad Najm. Thank you.
Thank you, Ariana. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to panel 2 on education, technology, and the role of youth. It's a pleasure to see you all here. Before we start our discussion, allow me to introduce and warmly welcome our panelists. Dr. Hana Al-Ghali. She currently the lead for the education sector and Senior National Program Officer at the UNESCO Regional Office in Beirut, working on supporting the education sector across general education, higher education, and technical and vocational education and training. Previously, she was a Senior Educational Specialist in the Education Global Practice in the Middle East and Northern Africa region at the World Bank, supporting the education program in Lebanon and Iraq. In the past, she was also the program coordinator for the Program on Education and Youth Policy Research at the Issam Fares Institute for Public Policy and International Affairs at the American University of Beirut, and taught courses at the university's Department of Education. In 2013, she was awarded a Fulbright Scholarship to the University of Georgia. She holds a doctorate of social and comparative analysis in education from the University of Pittsburgh. Welcome, Dr. Al-Ghali. Dr. Fatima Salem, Abi Salem. She is professor of computer science at the American University of Beirut. She holds a Master of Science in Pure Mathematics from AUB and Doctor of Philosophy degree in computing from the University of Oxford. Her current research interests are in data science and applied AI for impact across the variety of problems in the social, health, agricultural, and environmental sciences. Dr. Abu Salem has also consulted frequently on governance in the age of Gen AI and Agentic AI, and is a frequently invited speaker as well as content creator for demystifying AI for the public. She has spoken multiple times on challenges affecting women in computing and mathematicians in the developing world, and prominent venues such as ICIAM and Norwegian Academy for Sciences and Letters, and Arab WIC, Arab Women in Computing Network. She has served as secretary for the Special Activity Group on Supercomputing for the Society of Industrial and Applied Mathematics, and currently serves as associate editor for the Journal of Parallel and Distributed Computing. In 2019, Dr. Abu Salem also became a co-recipient for the prestigious award from Google, the AI Impact Challenge for the Social Good, in relation to her work in smart agriculture. Welcome, Dr. Abu Salem. So our third panelist, Dr. Wissam Saadeh. Yeah, sorry. So Dr. Saadeh is a journalist and academic who has been a lecturer in political science and history at St. Joseph University since 2003. His academic work focuses on political thought, particularly medieval and modern traditions, as well as the social and intellectual history of revolutions and modern transformations. He is also widely known for his opinion writing and political analysis in Lebanese and regional newspapers, where he tackles issues related to identity, freedom, political change, and contemporary crisis. Welcome, Dr. Saadeh. And finally, Mr. Mohammed Najm. Mr. Mohammed Najm is the Executive Director of the Beirut-based digital rights organization, Social Media Exchange, SMAX, the West Asia and North Africa's leading digital rights organization. His work includes local and regional advocacy campaigns, research on freedom of expression, privacy, and data protection. Mr. Najm organizes the yearly event Bread and Net. The last edition was in October 2025. The first conference in the MENA region that tackles topics related to technology and human rights. He is also building a movement in Arabic-speaking countries around thinking critically when it comes to the adoption of technologies in our lives in the WANA region. Welcome, Mr. Najm. Thank you all for being with us. So, for the first part of this panel, allow me to start the discussion with Dr. Ghali, because as UNESCO always emphasizes that education is at the heart of any transformative change we want to see in the society. So before we dive into the discussion about formal and non-formal education to counter hate narratives and promote active citizenship, I think it's helpful a bit to first understand the roots and the reasons behind these issues. So Dr. Ghali, could you please help us understand what drives hate narratives and why they spread so easily today, especially among Lebanese youth and especially on social media?
First of all, thank you so much for inviting UNESCO to be part of this. And for me, being back here is very emotional because I spent almost 10 years of my professional life here. So I'm very happy to be back at IFI, not just EUB. I mean, EUB is my home where I studied, but also IFI especially. So thank you so much. So we live today, Talar, in a polarized world, especially in the Arab region, where according to the 2025 Global Peace Index, the Middle East and North Africa remains the least peaceful region in the world. So our kids are growing up in the middle of uncertainty, conflict, and profound social divisions across countries and across communities. I personally grew up during the war. And I vowed that when I have kids, I will not have them experience what I experienced. I know the sound of, what boom boom means, and then, and so I knew that that means the rocket is coming, that we have to rush to the shelter of our building. And I vowed that my kids will not go through that. And, sorry, reflecting a little bit personal to give it context. And my husband and I went across the oceans and we came back to Lebanon because this is our home. And my kids, guess what? Lived through the same feelings I went through, which is being scared of war. My daughter, who was 18 this summer, was telling me, why? And so this is really something that has gone from one generation after the other. But I hope that I have passed something to her, which is this is home, and this is no matter what happens, this is where we will stay and fight for. A little bit digressing, but just to give you the image that this is the region we live in, and this is the country we live in. So our kids today are witnessing polarization, not only in public discourse, but also in the most intimate spaces of their daily lives, which is on their phones, in their classrooms, and in conversations that they overhear at home. And here I would like to emphasize the phone and the online, which really crosses all borders and comes into the lives of our kids. And I'd like to ask you, how many of you remember their middle school years? A show of hands. Come on, middle school. Do you remember middle school? Yes, it's fine. Raise your hand. Now, how many of you remember social media in middle school? I do see a few young people, so yeah. So our kids are living in a different world, a world where social media is part of their life. And therefore, you were asking about, hate speech and whatnot. This is one very powerful way that hate speech travels faster and further than anything today because of this. So basically, it is important to recognize today that the violence and harm do not only occur outside of the school and online and whatnot, but also inside the classrooms. According to UNESCO, roughly 1 in 3 students globally report being bullied at least once in the past month. At the same time, online spaces, as I mentioned, intensify these harms. Bullying, discrimination, and hate travel faster and further, especially that on average, teens spend between 8 to 9 hours on social media. So if you then add how many hours they actually sleep, that just makes it up almost half of their lives being exposed to what may be hate speech. So we must face the global reality that hate speech is rising, offline and especially online. In 2024 alone, the Racism and Incitement Index documented over 12 million pieces of violent and hateful content circulating on social platforms. Hate now moves faster than policy even, and then can respond. It reaches learners before teachers, before families, and before institutions. Finally, on this point, because young people today inhabit digital spaces constantly, their identities are therefore shaped by the content streams curated by algorithms, influenced by AI systems that are often invisible to them. These technologies can amplify harm, but also they can be also used especially to support education. And therefore, UNESCO advocates for ethics in AI. AI can help detect harmful trends early and to build digital citizenship rooted in dignity and respect. The choice is not between technology, I think, or no technology when it comes to education, but it is more about thinking how to use this technology and whether education prepares our young people to use the technology in humanity.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Ghadi. I would like to ask you about the UNESCO recommendation on education for peace, human rights, and global citizenship. This documentation that was published in 2023. Could you share with us, please, the main components of this recommendation and what is the global vision that UNESCO is inviting countries to adopt?
Thank you, Talar. This is very timely, actually, because just 2 weeks ago, UNESCO convened a regional conference or meeting on specifically that 2023 recommendation in Cairo, bringing together 19 Arab states to put together a roadmap for the implementation of the 2023 recommendations. So the 2023 recommendations on education for peace, human rights, and sustainable development was actually adopted by all 194 member states at UNESCO. And it challenges us to reimagine education so that it prepares learners not only for the labor market to get a job, but for life. Life in diverse societies, life in a digital world, life in moments of crisis and complexity. In a polarized world, actually, that is not being able to accommodate these concepts is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And therefore, these recommendations bring forward an urgent call for intensified investment in education, and in particular, in education for peace, human rights, and sustainable development. This is important to equip current and future generations with the knowledge, values, skills, and tools to respond to these challenges with effective solutions to foster inclusive, equitable, peaceful, and sustainable rights-based education and societies. Also, I'd like to add that this is not simply a policy statement, what the recommendations bring forward. It is an acknowledgement of the world our children are inheriting. Think back of your childhood in Lebanon. I mean, how many of us have been exposed to narratives? Not necessarily hate narratives, but narratives, right? And then you came across those narratives, offline mostly at our times, and think how these narratives have shaped you and who shaped you also with these narratives. Well, for our kids today, they are exposed, but we don't know if they have these factors to help shape them, especially that in many instances, these factors have been hijacked by the digital world. So in addition to that, I'd like to add that, we have the SDG 4, which is 4.7 specifically, which advocates for addressing issues related to peace and citizenship. And therefore, it is important to highlight that in these instances, UNESCO not only advocates for the peace recommendations, but also for global citizenship, where the citizen, and within that scope, we focus on issues related to climate change, to peace, and humanity as well.
Thank you, Dr. Ghali. I would like to ask if there are existing, let's say, initiatives in the Arab region, and particularly in Lebanon, some initiatives that are aligned with the recommendation.
Yes, thank you. The Arab states, as I mentioned, met in Cairo about 2 weeks ago to put together a roadmap based on the 2023 recommendations on education for peace, human rights, and sustainable development. And this roadmap was developed with ministries, educators, and civil society and youth, which is very key. Placing this vision within our shared reality. Our region, as I mentioned earlier, is a mosaic. It is rich in diversity, whether cultural, linguistic, religious, but it's also a region that has been deeply affected by conflict and displacement, inequity, and climate pressures. Therefore, these realities shape education. They shape young people's sense of identity and belonging. And therefore, this has been a very key roadmap that identifies key initiatives that are present already in our societies. However, they are fragmented. And so the hopes are that within this roadmap, that nation states will actually make the effort to put together these initiatives under a national government-led umbrella in order to ensure that these initiatives that are in every country across the region are really making an impact. Now, we come to Lebanon. And UNESCO has been working very closely with the Office of the First Lady on the initiative of school citizenship. I'm sure many of you have heard of that. Well, that is not a physical school. It's an initiative that aims to foster responsible citizens in a country that has been for a very long time stretched in different directions and many times opposing. UNESCO initially supported this initiative by developing the Citizenship Index, which I'm very proud to say is the first globally to be implemented in Lebanon. So with this initiative that aims to really foster civic learning, critical engagement, and youth participation through education, among the key activities within this initiative are the training of teachers and principals, and most importantly is supporting student-led civic projects. Just recently, maybe in the past 2 days, 150 schools from across the nation have been selected to take part in this initiative. And it is meant to really shape the opportunities to debate respectfully, to collaborate, to imagine shared futures in moments of division. And I think most importantly, especially in light of the current curriculum we have, and we know that the government is working on a new curriculum, but in light of the current curriculum, I think initiatives like this one of the First Lady really show our young generations that civic education and civics and citizenship is not just in textbooks. It is something that we live and we create.
Yes, and do you think, Dr. Ghali, that it is it's kind of difficult, I think, to be able to integrate the citizenship in across the curricula, because it is also mentioned in the recommendation that citizenship should not be treated as a standalone subject, but should be integrated in all subjects. So maybe the training of instructors and teachers is something very important, because I'm thinking about the science subjects, for example. It's not something impossible, but I think it's a bit challenging. What do you think?
Thank you. I mean, teachers are at the heart of what UNESCO does, right? Whether it's teacher training, teacher support, and whatnot. And I'm sure now if I ask you, I like to ask you many questions, right? But if I ask you to think of one teacher that really impacted you, I'm sure each one of us will think of a name. It's not going to be too difficult. Well, how the way UNESCO works is really starting from the strategic approach and then going down into different levels of the system. So initially, UNESCO would work directly with policymakers, and supporting policymakers address hate speech through education. It emphasizes that we cannot counter hate speech by silencing or avoidance, as many of us may have experienced growing up, hearing your parents say, "La, this is aib, la, don't say anything, just ignore," and whatnot. We cannot continue to avoid. We really have to counter it by equipping our young people with the competencies to recognize harmful narratives, understand their roots, and respond with critical thinking and empathy. All these competencies that now have been integrated into the new Lebanese curriculum that is currently being developed, and which also reflects human rights, diversity, and global citizenship. One of the key areas where we have supported recently is integrating media and information literacy into the new curriculum. So we worked closely with the Center for Educational Research and Development, developed the MIL, or Media and Information Literacy Framework, and then identify the competencies. And very interestingly is we worked with each and every group of experts working on the curriculum development, whether it's science, math, English, and whatnot, to map these competencies along with the citizenship competencies. And like you said, Talar, it may be easy to think of ways where you can identify MIL, for example, in English, right? Because it's all about reading and writing and whatnot. But how do you do it in science? And how do you do it in other subjects like math? Well, believe it or not, it was done. And they were able to identify these and map these competencies, because media and information literacy and citizenship does go in each and every part. It's not a standalone subject, as you mentioned. And so it is very important to support the teachers. I must also say, not only capacitate them with the skills needed to address, citizenship, but also support them to identify their own biases, because they are individuals by the end of the day in a classroom, and they are the ones who are interacting with their kids most of the time. Think of how many hours your child spends or your young person spends at school. It's a very long time. And so the teachers are also humans who need to identify their biases, deal with them, and then learn the skills on how to interact with the kids.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ghadi, for your valuable insight and for helping us better understand the roots of hate narratives, the global vision of UNESCO, and the concrete steps being taken, especially in Lebanon. It is also clear that teachers, schools, universities, civil societies, and national institutions all have a shared responsibility in building a common understanding of citizenship. Thank you. Okay. So, if education shapes the citizen, technology now shapes the environment in which that citizen lives and communicates. So, building on our discussion of citizenship, let's move to the digital dimension, how technology and AI can counter and control hate narratives, and how we can guide these tools to help us preserve our history and heritage. Dr. Abu Salim, as we know, AI-driven platforms learn from data we provide them, and their outputs depend on this processed or this trained data. Many AI tools are Western-centric, trained on datasets reflecting Western culture, history, and language. How does this bias affect the detection of hate speech in non-Western societies?
That's a very big question, so I want to figure out a way to layer it down. The idea of Western connotations has actually taken a lot of attention recently under a growing terminology dubbed decolonial AI. But I want to caution before going deeper into what that could mean against archaic ways of positioning us with respect to Western technology. This is not a defensive ideology. This is not a place to practice us versus them, as much as a place to say, does it suit us the way it's been developed? Data biases are really the last thing I would be concerned about. The first thing we thought about when we were first approaching a hate speech project that we were trying to do in our department was, do we actually want to call it hate speech? Is it really important the way it is in the US, for example? Do we have the luxury to police people around? Or do we actually have bigger concerns than who said what on an individual level? And this took us along the path to think that there are deeper issues at the collective level that perhaps do not apply, not perhaps, definitely do not apply to a Western connotation. And the first thing we wanted to ask is, so why do we want to do this? And it occurred to me that there could be two very important reasons. First, because we want to heal. So Hannah just mentioned that there's something transgenerational that we're witnessing. And yes, no, we know, our generation knows that we did not heal. So that was a place that got us thinking. And second, a lot of emerging research that unfortunately does not make it to a lot of our podiums is the connection that online speech has with offline violence. The backbone of this analysis is data and models. They do not necessarily have to be AI. So the first thing I would say is, let us not constrain ourselves to AI. As a scientist, I would find this completely counterproductive, because I've seen a lot of amazing models that predict whether or not a certain episode, I'm not going to say genocide per se, this is a bit far-fetched, but using text, using paralinguistics, which is not just text. This is what people are saying in videos, their body language, the amount of anger they project, their tone, and all of that open up windows like, yes, this is hardly at all an exercise in hate speech detection as much as it is to do with grievances detection. Grievances happen at large scale. They are problematic, symptomatic. They need to be acted on. They cannot be policed. So, which took us to the decolonial reformulation of hate speech detection. And the project we're trying to work on now will be called grievance detection.
Thank you, Dr. Abu Salem. I would like to ask you about the concrete steps. So if Western biases and AI models are a challenge, okay, let's take it like this. What concrete steps can interdisciplinary collaborations, including researchers from multiple fields and youth, take to create local data sets that genuinely reflect the cultural and historical realities of our communities?
Again, I would also steer the discussion away from data set because it's been overplayed. We've been in situations where we had really a large amount of very localized data sets, which we didn't know what to do with.
Okay.
I think we need to ask the right questions around these data sets. For example, we collected a lot of data around 2023 events in Lebanon. Politics, security, anti-refugee sentiment, LGBTQ, blah, blah. And then, so the first thing we wanted to say is that, from my perspective now, 10 or more years in this business, is that techno-solutionism cannot drive policy. So we had to turn to colleagues, like my colleague, Dr. Wissam Saadi, who's going to interject in a little bit, to say, these young people are coders. They developed code for us to detect hateful speech. But when we asked them to build a system on top of the large language model that could grab from the historical background and maybe create a counter narrative. So I want to develop a bot, a chat bot that goes maybe on X, and every time they see something hateful, they want to say something nice. These young coders had no clue what kind of historical background to plug in, because they didn't know. Not only was history missing, politics was missing. So why do I want to do that? Is there any action that I want to publish a paper or build a software that detects hate speech? Is it just to say, oh, you've been bad, you've been good? Of course not. So there was ethics missing. Why am I doing this? Is it the standard ethics, like we want to make everybody happy, we want to be comfortable? No, none of this works. These ethical frameworks also fail to substantiate the exercise we were doing. Grosso modo, it turned out that we were severely short on expertise that made this whole system meaningful, which takes us to the socio-technical paradigm that I would definitely say is the way to do proper AI nowadays.
Yeah. So let's see with Dr. Saadi. So considering the points highlighted by Dr. Abu Salem, so do you think that it is possible through AI models to preserve history, to...
No.
No, yeah.
It depends. I think that coming from my background as a historian of ideas and specialist in the field of studies about nationalism, nations, fabric and nationalism, I think that I have to mention 2-3 things. First, that AI, first of all, that we have to know how to reflect about the genocide, the hate speech, all this matters in the time of the numeric, digital age. Not only AI, but all what is coming with the AI, with the digital age. Second, that AI dissolves the boundary between writing and orality, and turning fleeting speech into persistent text, while in the same time making written words interactive, more interactive, reshaping how ideas and even how hate circulate. And AI can convert speech into text in real time, effectively turning oral expressions into written ones. But unlike classical writing, which is static, AI can make written text more dialogue, more conversions. A reader can ask questions, request clarification, and so on. But I think that we speak most of the time about hate speech, ignoring or isolating hate speech from the matter of suffering. So I think that we have to make this combination between suffering and hate speech. So suffering is a catalyst of hate speech. Suffering is also the prolongement perpetuator of hate speech. And that's why when it came to the genocide, ethnical cleansing, and the transmission of all this terrible memories or tragedy and within the collective memory, we have to agree first that the transmission of collective memory depends on the fabric of each nation. So let's take, for example, the Armenian nation. So because in the case of the Armenian nation, we have this diasporic element, quite different than in other types of nations. So some peoples have experienced the diaspora as a constitutive element of their collective life. A nation so became, like in the Armenian case, diasporic when its long-term history, when its historical continuity depends as much on networks across borders as on the population within its territory. So the Armenian nation is one of the rare historical community for which diaspora is not only a deviation from a national life, not an exception, but one of its long-term enduring structural conditions. So for centuries, the Armenian people have existed in a dual configuration. Hayastan, Armenia, territorial core, the Armenian plateau, the Armenian highlands, and a vast extraterritorial world extending across the Middle East, the Mediterranean. So this duality is constitutive of Armenian identity itself. And why I'm speaking about this duality? Because Armenian identity is built on unusual tension between those Armenians who live within the homeland and those in the diaspora, who retain a national consciousness while residing in host societies or other societies or new societies. So in the 20th century, this diasporic identity was sustained through Armenian schools, churches, political parties such as the Tashnak, local newspapers, community clubs, etc. Today, digital media become more and more efficient. And so if I imagine a guy, like a 15, 16 years old guy, Armenian guy living in Paris or in Los Angeles, he often learns about Armenia and Armenian tragedy, Armenian genocide, not through the schools or Tashnak or like a classical public, political publications, but through Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, influencer, TikTok narratives. And so younger generations consume history in the form of short videos, etc. This transformation risks compressing the genocide into a distant symbol, detached from its complexity. Artificial intelligence reshapes memory politics, let's say, amplifies all narratives, producing a competition among victimhood claims. But at the same time, we have this competition not only between different memories, like who is suffering the most, the Armenian or the Kurds, the Armenians or the Kurds or the Palestinian or the Jews. So we have this rivalry about suffering. And we have also, in a digital context, and we have also the fact that in the Armenian-Turkish context, Turkey and Azerbaijan enjoy structural advantages, digital structural advantages. So because Turkey combines large technical base, strong university, emerging AI laboratories, integrating AI into defense systems. Azerbaijan, smaller but oil-financed, rapidly adopts advanced military AI technologies and synchronizes its digital propaganda with state policy. And we see this in the last war about Nagorno-Karabakh. So Armenia, by contrast, faces constraints, smaller budget, weaker techno-industrial base, reliance on diaspora talent, slow institutional uptake of AI, no unified doctrine for information security. So the result is a fragmented Armenian AI posture dependent on external actors. Nonetheless, digitalization and diaspora activism offers opportunities, but at the same time, here we have the second problem and this is here, it's deeply the problem of how to use AI or not, the challenges represented by AI, because AI job is not justice, it's visibility. So, meaning that, I mean that visibility does not equate to justice. So here we can compare between the different suffering example, like the Jews Holocaust collective memory, the Rome, the Tsigan collective memory, the Armenian collective memory. So we have let's take these three examples: the Jews, the Armenians, the Roma. So the Jewish communities transformed trauma in institutionalized structures. Armenians in the beginning lacked a sovereign state to preserve evidence, to protect survivors, to confront denial. But Armenian memory relied on diaspora for a long time. In the case of the Tsigan, of the Roma, here the genocide occurred in near invisibility. They entered the 20th century without a state, without a church, without an institution, without a diplomatic corps, without intelligentsia. So the digital, so if it was like this in the 20th century, in the time of the digital age, so nobody will speak about the Roma's tragedy. But Armenian memory remains emotionally intense, but when we compare with other suffering, but strategically vulnerable, because it is vulnerable to state-sponsored disinformation campaigns.
So, Dr. Saad, so we have opportunities and we have some risks. So, to conclude,
I think that it's not only the matter that we have opportunities, we have more challenges and more difficulties than opportunities. When it is when we are in a position of a small nation, we have less opportunities and more challenges, and so the digital age is more challenging for small nations And we have to acknowledge that in the case of the Armenian nation, even we have a lot of opportunities coming from the diaspora, but when we compare between the capacities of Turkey and Azerbaijan together and Armenia, no, we have to be more scared.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Saade. Mr. Najm, it's very important to discuss with you content moderation policies on social media platforms. As we know, these policies can sometimes be discriminating and may even contribute to misinformation. For example, through the systematic removal of Arabic posts, which can violate users' rights to freedom of expression and access to information. So,
thank you.
what are the main challenges?
I guess to continue the conversation, what Dr. Fatima and Dr. Saadi says, I want to mention a little bit like more the bigger picture of tech companies in the US and the infrastructure, and like how did we get here, basically. I mean, it's so important to look at the space where we are right now and look at tech companies, and like it's all US based focused tech companies. So when we all go online, it's all private. So we're going to private locations. So imagine you're spending most of your time in a mall. You're following the mall regulation, the mall rules, because there's no public space. There's no civic space online right now. And this is one of the big challenges. Because if we think about us as humans and the history of humans, we used to go out, protest in the public space, in civic space. Now people, if they want to protest or talk about anything, they go on Facebook, they go on Instagram, TikTok. It's all controlled by some country, basically, by some company that is controlled by some company. So it's really important to talk about these anecdotes, to also know the fight that's happening right now. There's a big fight happening right now between the EU and the US. If you're following the conversation recently, President Macron also spoke a couple of days ago. I mean, now they're focusing a lot about the kids and like forbidding social media before 16. It's a conversation. I'm not gonna get into the details because I have a different opinion, but it shows how much the EU are trying to challenge the US, because all the tech space, all the techno, basically fascism that's coming from the US, they are controlling the infrastructure. So the EU are worried. The EU are worried, and they are talking about digital sovereignty. They're trying to build their own infrastructure. So they're moving away slowly from US-based technologies to open source platforms. So they want to build their own platforms. And I just saw that they're investing around $200 billion are just one initial payment from the EU. And I go to Germany and other EU countries, and I hear a lot this kind of conversation. They are worried about this. So this is basically one of the big conversation. And also regulation, like policies and regulations are really big as well. So that's why the EU have done the DSA, Digital Service Act. So they're trying to push more regulation inside the EU. They're trying to tweak the tech companies around privacy issues, freedom of expression, all what we are concerned about. So it has more like protection of data, it has more ethics, etc. And now with the AI, the EU just launched EU AI Act, I guess last year maybe, or the year before. So the EU AI Act is basically to control and try to regulate the AI when it comes to the EU. And when it comes to the AI, I was thinking about what has been discussed early on about AI. And I guess it's really important to look at our history and how technology evolved. And I was thinking about cars, and I looked it up. Like the first car accident that happened, that was recorded, it was in 1891 in Ohio in the US. So 134 years ago. If we look right now at the also like the streets and the cars after 134 years ago, it still has like the same planning how they started, or at least plus or minus. But the most important, it is human-centric. It is very human-centric. And this kind of technology has evolved slowly, and it was taking care, like when accidents started killing people, they invented the seatbelt. it was enforced. They invented the speed limit, etc. They put the technology evolved a lot and is still evolving. They also put like the kids seat. There's all this technology is human centric. What is really worrying me about AI, and I was reading a book about it recently that is called The Coming Wave for Mustafa Sulaiman. Mustafa Sulaiman, he was DeepMind, Google, and I just read his book about AI, and he's worried that these machines are going to reach a point where their decision is based on no human interaction. So basically, now we have ChatGPT, then the second layer of ChatGPT, the third, the fourth wave, fifth wave. At some point, it's not going to be human-centric. So the decision that will be taken will not be tweaked by human. They will be taking decisions. So the humans are worried. That's where the worry. That's why we're all worried about AI, because it needs to be regulated. It needs to be slowed down a little bit. We've seen how much technology is taking time to be evolved in societies and how it's affecting us. So AI is going very fast. We need some ethics around it. We need some regulation around it. I'm not saying it needs to take 134 years, but at least it needs to be slowed down and regulated. And unfortunately, in the US, as we speak, there is no federal law that regulates AI. And if you listen to I forgot his name, like the Palantir, one of the Palantir CEO, or one of the big CEOs in the US, he was saying regulating AI is antichrist, and that's how he puts it. So we have all this, the Trump group of techies, of all these techno-fascism, of all these trillionaires. Musk will be trillionaire soon. They're all talking about also robots, having army of robots. So there's no regulation. So it's all wild, wild west in the US. And the EU are worried, and we should also be worried about this. I just want to tease you a little bit with some of these ideas and to see if there's any interaction or questions to continue the conversation. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Najam. So maybe we can open the floor to questions from the audience.
Hello. I think the most important thing in our area, I agree with you all about what's going on, but seeing what's happening on social media in the last a couple of months, I think education is the most important thing, especially teaching tolerance, because it's so frustrating to see people that are they have locked accounts and then they just go with their comments and with their the laughing emoji, just trying to manipulate people and just bullying others. We are in a society in the Middle East that does not accept others, doesn't accept any idea that's maybe correct other than our ideas. And I think that the technology gurus are making use maybe, and they are also using this weakness that we have, because now we are just absorbing the AI without thinking and without even ethically thinking about it. So thank you.
So first, thank you so much to all the panelists. I'm sorry to say that I am an American in the room, but I hope a good one, writing some data policy stuff. But I have a question inspired by you, Mr. Najam, especially, but for really all the panelists. First, it's striking that beyond tech solutionism, what you're describing is tech messianism, really, and the idea that I've seen videos now posted by Americans, particularly evangelicals, who are looking at the way that AI actually might replicate the characteristics of a messiah, and that it's disembodied and is all powerful and all knowing. So there's really something terrifying about that prospect. But the question I want to ask is shifting gears, not as a scholar, but as like an activist, what do you see, all of you who have done sort of studies and thought through like, particularly large data sets? What terrifies me as an Armenian American, right, is that given the corpus of data from which AI can pull and the way that the hand is stacked against us because there are other states that have so much greater resources, what are steps you think that individuals can take to try to change what like the corpus of data that AI is drawing from as individuals as opposed to state-centric things? Like I'm struck, I have a colleague who's writing his dissertation on, say, is natural language processing able to recognize Eastern and Western Armenian, right? This is a challenge, and it means that there are myriad challenges facing, say, different, Arabic is diglossic, right? So how do we recognize which kinds of dialects and which sorts of inputs are privileged? So if there's anything you think individuals can do as individuals, as activists, to say, okay, if we have a not exactly digital commons, what can some of the people in the room do without joining Palantir, right?
So what I would do is take a step back, away from all this sort of panic about we don't have enough data or the data sets we have are too biased, etc., and promote two things that I insist should be really part of any panel or workshop on hate speech. I've noticed that wherever there's hate speech here, there's no addendum. I noticed there's no hate speech detection, hate speech propagation. What is it that we're doing? And I realized that all of us, minus computer scientists, are not really sure what this AI is doing. I mean, we can ask, does anyone know what the AI is doing on the content moderation platform? Most likely no. I would definitely promote and try to mobilize around two things. The study of hate speech propagation. We could be reading 1,000 hateful comments, but the impact is very limited. Or maybe one hateful comment that is contagious, very, very powerful, and is able to affect a lot of more and more people, and this could spread. So in my opinion, this is a place where AI is not playing a role, but rather more complex network analysis that would allow you to act and say, red alarm, there's a flag, now it's getting dangerous, I need to act. There's no way we can get rid of hate speech, so that's one. The other thing I would certainly promote along the lines of preserving collective memory, the technologies are there. They're called, they're called RAGs for short, but Retrieval Augmented Generation Systems, where the youth can reclaim agency, come and build their own LLMs with their own narrative and just deploy them and see where that takes, because there are ways to be active rather than reactive, and I would definitely vouch for that.
Should I go? So from the education perspective, I think one thing that I think of as educators is not to be scared of AI. I got an email the other day from my son's school English teacher saying, I think your son has been using ChatGPT to write his English essay. Well, I was not upset because he is exploring tools that he has access to, right? I think here is our role to teach our kids and our young people how to use AI. ChatGPT is just one tool. I mean, the experts here know way more than I do in that. But how to use it ethically and how to use it for their own service, whether to combat hate speech coming at them or others or whatnot. And we have heard of all these technologies. So I think what we can do is really not be scared of AI. Although Mr. Najm, right, said AI may take over one day, but I don't believe that, honestly. I think that we need to take charge, and that's the way we need to move forward. You may disagree.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Al-Ghali, Dr. Abu Saleh, Dr. Saadeh, and Mr. Najam. Thank you so much.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to wrap up everything, which we'll see if it works out. So today we address a profound and urgent issue that has shaped our past, endangers our present, and will define our future. The connection between hate speech and genocide and the critical responsibility we bear both as individuals and as digital citizens to prevent such atrocities. Throughout history, hate speech has often been a precursor to genocide, as we heard. The harrowing events of the Armenian genocide, the Holocaust, the Rwandan genocide, and most recently, the Rohingya genocide and Gaza remain us starkly of the catastrophic power that lies in spoken and written words. When unchecked, hate speech can foster environments ripe for violence, compounding prejudice into actions that are devastating in scope and impact. Hate speech goes beyond offensive or derogatory language. It dehumanizes groups, seeks to justify discrimination, and lays a foundation for broader systematic violence. The process of othering, depicting a certain group as an enemy or subhuman, sets the stage for mass atrocities. A process that was shaped by written and printed words in the past, loudmouth agitators, even malignant whispers between neighbors found their way into the subterranean stream of history. This demonstrates the power of the media in amplifying hostile narratives and normalizing hatred, serving as catalysts for genocide. In our digital age, as we heard in the last panel, the landscape has transformed. The reach and impact of hate speech are no longer confined to isolated geographies, but span the globe via social media platforms. The challenge we face is unprecedented. How to contain and counteract hate speech in an era where information and misinformation spreads with staggering immediacy. Digital citizenship entails rights and responsibilities in the online sphere. As digital citizens, we must adhere to ethical guidelines promoting respect and dignity for all while critically evaluating content and considering its potential consequences. As we have learned very detailed today, social media platforms as the key architectures of contemporary communication bear profound responsibility. These platforms, imbued with immense influence, often find themselves at the crossroads of free expression and regulation. The ethics of managing hate speech online demands stringent frameworks that align with human rights principles, something that becomes more and more urgent due to an overall evolving tech let's use your word, Thomas, tech messianism, okay? Or tech fascism, I think that's the other word we heard today. So that means these algorithms, I don't know much about it, so, but what I will stress a little bit more is that the reliance solely on algorithms is not enough. Context matters greatly, and the nuances of language and cultural specificities necessitates human oversight in assessing potential harmful content. Thus, platforms must invest in diverse and well-trained teams who can understand and act upon complexities inherent in global communication dynamics. Moreover, social media companies should, in the best of all possible worlds, collaborate internationally to develop standards for content moderation that reflect diverse perspectives and aim to protect vulnerable communities. As we heard it today several times, a necessary challenge for policymakers and technological innovators. The prevention of genocide is a testament to humanity's ethical commitment. History has shown us time and again that we must remain vigilant against the currents of hate that can swiftly escalate into genocide. Thus, education and awareness are indispensable tools. Educating individuals about historical atrocities linked to hate speech and the mechanisms by which such speech proliferates can empower communities to recognize and reject hate preemptively. An academic and non-academic institution fostering critical thinking skills and incorporating discussions on digital ethics into the curricula support the creation of informed and conscious global citizens. In conclusion, the relationship between hate speech and genocide is a stark reminder of the potent threat posed by unchecked vitriol and dehumanization. We all have to become stewards of the digital realm, and it is our ethical imperative to harness the power of connection inherent in social media responsibly. By promoting dialogue that heals rather than harms, and committing to combating misinformation and hate with unwavering resolve, we honor the memory of those who suffered from past atrocities and safeguard the promise of a more peaceful future. Only then can we ensure that our collective voice speaks in unison against hate and for the enduring dignity of every person. Thank you.
Okay, now I would like to invite Ms. Mireille Khanamirian to offer tokens of appreciation to our panelists, please. Ms. Mireille. Okay, first we have Mr. Muhammad Najm. Okay, Ms. Hannah Haddam. Dr. Fatima Abu Salim. Dr. Roy Nock. Dr. Talara Teshian. Okay. Okay. And Dr. Wissam Saad.
Look at me, please.
لا سيركل او اس اتش ار وين مارينا؟
Excuse me. Excuse me. أنا الأرملي كيف شاب الإذن؟
That's the wrong one, yeah.